It's Steve, Kelly, and Kyle, and we're all here to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake, kind of like a critique, analysis, review thing. Um, we're just going to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of this game. I think we all at least generally like the game, but
hmm
naturally there's some things, and we're on different, I guess, familiarity with the Final Fantasy VII games, where we're all at different levels there. I played the original Final Fantasy VII through multiple times. I love it. It's one of my favorite Final Fantasy games, which is one of my favorite franchises. So I really enjoy a large parts of that. So it's definitely different takes on what it is you're going to get with the remake and kind of the views and changes they made. But
Yeah, my first experience with Final Fantasy VII was the remake, so there's that.
yeah, so
Whereas I,
we can go ahead and just get started here with some of the positives and negatives that we're looking at. Um, I guess if I'm really going to talk about positive, it's kind of a more general one, but it really is when they first announced that they're making a Final Fantasy VII remake. It's not something that I felt like I needed. I think the original Final Fantasy VII is still a fun game to play. The graphics, especially for the characters, are outdated, but the background and stuff looks nice, and I think that you can still go back to that old game and have a lot of fun playing it. So it's not something where I felt like it needed a remake, and I kind of would rather a new good Final Fantasy from Square, but they seem like they don't want to do that these days. But overall, I left more positive than negative in a lot of areas, so that was quite a good surprise for me.
right, and I had a similar note on that because I actually was jonesing for a remake because I did not like the dated graphics myself because I'm more up for modern and new changes. But when I heard that was episodic and I heard that the Kingdom Hearts guy was getting a hold of it, I was getting. I came into the game wanting to hate it, already hating it. I shouldn't say wanting to. And then I was just pleasantly surprised, actually. It won me over.
Hmm. Yeah, and just jumping into that game for the first time, I guess I knew some ancillary stuff. I knew the characters. I kind of had a rough idea of what everything was about, but just playing through it for the first time through the remake, Kelly didn't spoil anything for me, but he's, like he already said, he's a big buff with the Final Fantasy VII games in general, one of his favorites. And he kind of said he was curious about how I would interpret some of the things that happened. And to me, honestly, I guess I'll start here. The story, for the most part, from my very first kind of blind playthrough, not knowing much in depth or detail about the original, it seemed to flow. Nothing kind of there were a few things that were wonky, but nothing really felt out of place. And I guess we'll just jump right into the Dick Ghosts. That was something I think that Kelly and Steve might have both been anticipating me to be like, well, what the heck is this? But
I would call them time ghosts. I'm not satisfying Steve and his dick ghosts.
Come on.
Steve,
Got the
on
little
the
foreskin
scale.
hood.
Yeah. I don't see it.
And they were created by a dick. So I don't know.
Yeah.
No, they were created by the planet, I think.
Yeah.
The planet.
Or time.
The
or
plant's
something.
name's Nomura, and he's a dick.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. You can continue, Kyle.
But even that, I guess I consider Final Fantasy in general to kind of be in so far into that fantasy realm where it didn't seem out of place to me. Where I guess if I did play the original, I'd be like, well, why? Why did they do this? This doesn't make any sense. But to me, it didn't feel out of place until we started going through the original, and then I was like, oh, I get why this is weird now. If I would have played that one first, but in general, it didn't. Nothing felt out of place. It kind of flowed pretty well. So that was a positive.
Right, and touching further on let's call them time ghosts then. Well, further into that, why it was so jarring too was it's just the game actually has a lot of convoluted. The original game has a lot of already like really complex things to get
I'd say
through
most Final Fantasy
especially
games
with,
do.
Yeah, they all do, especially with Cloud's character. So adding this extra layer is just like what a mess it's going to turn into. As I'm concerned.
Yes.
Yeah, I could see that.
I did not feel like it smoothly transitioned in there, and it seemed like the scenes were kind of like why is this? Like it almost. I feel like it does slow down certain parts of the story. And it's not just that though, too. I guess there are other aspects that they included that slow down the story, like when you're in the train graveyard and you're with actual ghosts, not the time ghosts. You're there for like 2 hours and a half trying to get through this place, and then they're like, "Well, we gotta help them out." Like, The plate's gonna fall. Everyone's going to die.
Well,
Right?
maybe
The sense of
helping the
urgency
time
was
ghosts.
missing there.
Yeah, and the time ghost really didn't add to that as much. Also, yeah, I did not have a favorable view of it. I was very happy that I had that story element ruined for me online. I
Same.
saw spoilers. I told Steve about it because I was so happy that I think it ruined for me. Like, normally you don't want spoilers on anything, but the fact that this exists in this game, I would have been so pissed. I would have been so pissed with their explanation of what it is and what happened, and then what happens at the end. I'm not gonna lie.
No, Kelly's warned and saved it for me. But I'm really glad we got Kyle's fresh perspective on it, because that I wasn't sure what to expect for a newcomer to the game.
I feel like
what-
they added it
Go-
for
Yeah, go ahead,
the
go ahead.
old fans. But yeah, I don't think it actually works for the old fans, because the idea is, well, if they already know the story, like, how are we going to hook them to play the next ones? You know, they want to create some sort of change. And some of the characters not dying ever.
I say he just wants to get his dick prints on it so he can change the story and say, yeah, I'm so creative, I'm Gamora.
Yeah. It does seem like they at least want to make it, probably, they would argue, more fun for the fans. And the base game's still there, so it doesn't hurt me too much that this is also there. I don't see them as like the same universe or anything at this point. I can't. It's not even just this, but it's also like VR being a thing in this game, and one of my other negatives is Chadley being a thing in this game. Chadley's one of the worst designed characters I've ever seen in a video game. He doesn't fit into the game at all, seemingly. Like, even the new art that they made for the remake, he just like pops out. He looks stupid, he talks stupid.
Do you want to fight some summons?
Yeah.
Right.
I hate Chadley, and I don't like that there's a VR headset that you have to put on. Now, that wasn't added in this remake alone, because it was also in Crisis Core, but Crisis Core wasn't really a great game either. So it's something that wasn't in the original Final Fantasy VII, which was almost more steampunkish than sci-fi, and
Right.
they definitely went full sci-fi with the Final Fantasy VII franchise, if you wanted to call it that, with all the spin-off games. And I don't like that change at all.
Right. Yeah, it's funny you're going the same order as me with that. Chadley was number 2 on my list, and honestly, you even listed the complaints in the same order I had them. So I got nothing to add there. Kyle, what's your perspective?
And
Yeah,
Chadley.
no, Chadley sucked. I'd be hard pressed to find someone that could be like, no, he was a great addition to the game. I mean, the only way that you can get summons is, I mean, I guess compared to the original, you really just pick the summons up, so it's not that.
Yeah, it's a
much
materia,
crazier.
just like all the other ones that you picked
It's
up.
just a materia, but it is stupid that you have to go to this little boy that put these goggles on him. That's the only.
And then
have
he'll
to
give you
interact
the
with him if you
materia, I
want him
guess.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird.
I made a Bahamut, whereas before we could speculate how they were. Like, we thought they were naturally
Right.
part of the Earth.
Earth
Right,
magic
right.
at that point. That's what materia is.
Right.
But I guess if you play around with it, you could change it. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe they did design it. It just seems stupid. I'm not gonna lie. I really don't care for that much. But also, one of my negatives. I guess we're gonna be talking about the negatives first, and then maybe get to the positives later. But
Right, we'll get back to that.
yeah, we'll get back to the
positives are really
positives.
positive, trust us.
But I have summons still suck, and what I mean is they sucked in Final Fantasy 15. They suck here. It's not that they don't do a lot of damage, because they do, and it is cool using their abilities when they're out. But the fact that it's random when they decide to appear, and you just don't have that control. For me, that's a pretty big negative for how it is that they work. I would rather them be worse and you have more control over them than what it is that they're seemingly doing with summons with the Final Fantasy games.
I honestly thought they auto-appeared on every boss fight, because
They seem like they do every boss fight, but when they choose to do every boss fight, why don't they give me control of when they'll appear on the boss fights?
So I know there's a bar that pops up, but do any of us know when that bar starts or what?
And that's what I mean. It seems random, right?
Yeah, it's weird.
And Final Fantasy 15 also had random summons that appeared, and it was like a really cool animation, though you only get to see one of them, which is just Ramahu.
Just Rayma, non-stop Rayma.
Yeah, it's him every time, because it works kind of like on your location as well, and he seems to cover 90% of the map. But it's just, in that game, it's just random. Maybe it appears more often when you're lower on health, I don't know.
Well, I bet if we looked it up, there'd be some explanation, but it's not clear when you're playing it what that explanation
It doesn't
is.
feel like you have control over it. which is the problem that I have. Like, if you compare it to older Final Fantasy games where you just summon it and you use the attack, or Final Fantasy X, which is probably the best implementation of it. Also, even Type 0 wasn't bad. You did kill one of your characters, but you had like 18 of them, and there was one that could revive herself, so you could also use that and summon. And then you have full control to summon, so you could at least choose when you do it. I don't know. There's certainly better ways to do summons than what they've been doing in the past with Final Fantasy
Although
15. And
it is a step up from 15, I think, still.
Yeah, because you do have more control.
More control, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not just auto fight enders.
Yeah, that's true. It does so much damage in 15. It's just like, oh, I win now that I got the summon bar.
Yeah, I
and then you have to
randomly
like,
won.
you have to hold down R2 or something, and it's just like, is it working? And you can't just press R2, and there's no like visual indicator that you're holding it down. I don't know. We have to bash Final Fantasy 15, which I'm sure we will even more in this video. Every time.
Obligatory.
Yep. Talking about some of the bosses here, I don't think they're bad as far as a visual perspective goes, but I kind of have this tied in with the stagger bar. Is the stagger bar really necessary? They've been doing that since Final Fantasy 13, this like form of this Final Fantasy team. Because as far as I understand it, it's the Final Fantasy 13 team that worked on this VII Remake. But they always seem like they add in a stagger bar, which the main reason why I want to bring that up with the boss fights is because it resets itself when they go through different stages.
Right.
Yeah, that's super annoying.
That's a stage problem, too. But yeah, sorry, Kyle.
No, you're good. I guess to be devil's advocate or try to be generous to what they're going for, isn't it like certain attacks or certain type of attacks will trigger it faster? So I guess that would encourage players to figure out the opponent, figure out different styles of playing, and utilize that to their benefit and all that kind of shit. But
definitely,
I never did it that way.
It's definitely not as bad here
for health.
as what it was in like 13. The reason why I really disliked it in 13 was because it didn't feel like I was leveling up my character and doing more damage. It was all the stagger bar on every enemy, every fight. It just seemed like you just wanted to get that stagger bar up. Well, here it seems like, outside of maybe some bosses, I think it's definitely done far better here. But it's just one of those things, I guess, that maybe I'm just not a huge fan of, that they just really seem to like with that development team for some odd reason.
Well, I guess the question... Oh, sorry.
Nope, go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, if they just hid the status or the stagger bar like in an Elden Ring game or something, where if you don't know when they're going to break so you don't care as much, would that have improved it for you, or...?
I don't think so.
I was just curious. Staggering mechanic seems to be a common thing in all games these days, and you just kind of get desensitized to it, but I don't see it adding anything myself.
I guess...
Yeah, I mostly just kind of like don't... When I play VII the Remake, I don't... It's cool that it's there, and if I do end up staggering an enemy, that's pretty sweet, but I put zero thought into it. I just attack and try to kill the guy, and if I stagger him, oh, it's bonus, nice.
Right, which is why if I didn't see the bar, I would care even less. Like, it's just like, hey, there it is, I guess that's just what it's supposed to happen.
It is far better than what they did in the previous games, too, because in Final Fantasy 13, it would jump up from, like, 100% damage to, like, 900% damage. So... Nice. Yeah, I don't know. It just goes like to some crazy number, but the highest it gets here is like 300%. So it's not nearly as bad. It just, honestly, it probably wouldn't be that much of a negative for me if I didn't have that negative connotation built in from the previous games, and if it didn't reset itself on the boss fights when they entered stages. Like that's kind of
that is a negative for sure.
Yeah.
Plus, they do want to encourage you to do that whole, like, yeah, save up all your big, heavy-hitting stuff, because that bar is about to pop, and now unleash it all with a little bonus, whereas I don't really
like
care.
That as much.
I don't call that strategy, that's just basic reasoning, and that's not fun for me anyway.
I agree that that's not really what I enjoy about Final Fantasy combat for the most part. And then the other negative thing I do have about the combat is just flying enemies.
Oh yeah, flight physics. I didn't write it down, but that's a good point.
Yeah. It seems like if you have Barret, you're okay, but if you don't, then you can't hit these guys.
Right, Cloud does like a straight up vertical, and they're never there by the time he gets up.
Yeah, by the time he actually gets up. Like, it would be nice if they had, like, Final Fantasy VII, the original one, has long range materia, and that would have been a nice purple materia to unlock to put on Cloud or Tifa or something.
Oh, that'd be cool. Like he swings and shoots out a little wind slash.
Thing,
like,
yeah.
Oh, that'd be...
They might do that in the next one, but I think they do need something like that. I mean, it's still the same attack, like you're not doing more damage, but then you can actually reach things.
That or a good jump.
Yeah, maybe both. Maybe both would be a good idea. But yeah, as far as that goes, I also have for negatives side quests. I don't think they're awful because there's not a lot of them, but I do think that
Right.
they're not good. So
Same.
yeah, so
Well,
I
yeah,
still had to
yeah.
put that in the negatives.
I did mention side quests. Where did I put it? Well, I just think it's good amount of side quests. That's what I put. I'm a
Yeah, because there's
snob
not a
for
lot. That's the
right.
only good thing is that there's just not a lot of them.
There was enough to keep me feeling like I was
Doing
getting
some stuff, maybe.
more of an experience, I guess. I'm a snob for an RPG with multiple options. If I don't want to go straight through the storyline, I have other things to do.
Oh, okay.
So I like that, and it wasn't too much. They all kind of sucked. Nothing really felt important, but
It did give you something else to do, another reason to
right,
grind and fight some people.
Right.
right.
But when some are like, "Oh, I need you to find my cats, mister," it's like, "Bitch, I kill people."
The secret thief of the slums.
Right? Who's the angel of this up? She's like Cartman with the coon. Who?
Guards ever think that maybe that girl that goes around and knows everybody with the backpack is the thief of the slums?
Right? Keeps talking angel of the slums
Yeah,
lore every
she's
time she
hyping
comes by.
it up. You think it
Not the
could be
most discreet thief.
that person? I don't know. I think it could be. And then the last negative I actually have is just dungeon padding. So I have the sewers in Hojo's murder maze. Hojo's murder maze actually made me so angry because I just kind of wanted to finish the game my first time through that I was screaming at my TV. But it's also like they need to have a final dungeon. I get that before they start giving you a bunch of boss fights. But the reasoning of the final dungeon and just having like Hojo watch you, it's like according to my calculations, this should work. It's just like your calculations have been wrong 100% of the time. There hasn't been a single moment when like you've been correct, but you're still so I don't know. And then they're like, I
Right.
guess we got to do what he says. Like, no, fuck this. This is stupid. Like I
He's
hated the story
laughing.
reasoning.
For my research purposes.
Yeah.
Like, who's doing this and why? And then
Yeah.
they repeated that gimmick in the Yuffie DLC
Yeah,
for
they
whatever
did a
reason.
little bit. Yeah, I think it's because it's easy for them to write, even though it's pretty awful. But that's the
No.
last negative I got,
No, I can go further into pacing too while we're on the subject.
which is
'cause,
dungeon padding. It's like similar thing.
Dungeon padding, exactly, definitely a thing. This one was, again, this is very minor, but I do feel like a lot of blatantly forced walk-in bits were a bit, like, I'm just like pushing my analog stick as hard forward as possible, like, I don't care, move faster.
Oh yeah, and then they talk. Well, they normally carry in a
Right.
conversation. It's almost like a movie. Yes, yeah, that stuff really bugs Steve. It doesn't bug me as much, but I think there's other people that are in your boat, Steve, too, that don't like that stuff.
Well, if it fits in a game like Last of Us, because
Yeah.
there's interesting things happening, but there's not intriguing enough for me to want to slow down and go, ooh, I better pay attention here.
Yeah,
Right,
they
and I
could
do
also
like-
carry on the conversation while you're running, but I guess masking
Right.
load times is also a thing. But
The end fight, the end Sephiroth fight, just seemed like it came out of nowhere for no reason, no explanation. It's like, you gotta fight 3 of these things.
oh yeah,
Why?
fighting fate or whatever, the time ghost
Yeah.
personified.
Maybe I wasn't paying attention, but it didn't seem to fit at all.
It
Well,
didn't.
Yeah,
I lumped that into my time ghost complaints,
yeah,
but
it's also it's stupid, but like so are the rest of the time ghosts. So I mean, I don't
Yeah,
really.
true.
Right.
Also,
they're all
like
true.
Sephiroth is
tied.
kind of like, all right, I'll see you on the other side of this portal, and we're like, why are we fighting Sephiroth? Like, what did he do? Like,
like a whole lot of just why.
yeah,
I think even
you guys
Cloud
have
would
to
have more
fight
questions,
fate,
like,
or the planet will get destroyed because I'm giving you flashbacks of Avon children footage or something. It's like, so because you see in the future that maybe the planet's destroyed, so you're trying to stop it, but the planet, like I played the game, it's not actually destroyed, so I guess it's Sephiroth tricking the party into sending them a false future. So then you have to go there and fight fate that should be on your side because the Earth and planet that makes the time ghost wants you to succeed. I don't know. You're right.
yeah,
it's-
speaking of which, could I just say that I am tired of time travel in video games?
Yeah,
I
or multiple
don't
realities. I'm tired of multiple realities.
Multiverse is the worst. I hate
Multiverse is
multiverses.
probably the worst thing in storytelling right now.
Right.
In
If
everything.
you're doing it for comedy only, like say Rick and Morty,
Yeah.
otherwise nothing.
Yeah,
Right.
it's one of the worst storytelling gimmicks. It makes everything lose weight when you know that there's another universe where I guess everything works out and no one dies now, and there's other characters, which is the point of Rick and Morty almost, is that
Right.
you know, he doesn't actually care about any of the Ricks or Mortys, is because it already lost all of its weight. But they're still trying to tell these stories with all of these characters. Like, of course, there's the Marvel universe, and then there's like shit like this. It's just like, well, now I don't care about anything because
Right.
of the stupid way that you're writing this shit. Yeah, I agree. And then
Because you told me nothing matters. So.
yeah,
Yeah.
now I just don't care. And they're still trying to do that here, but I guess you do, at least when you beat Fate, stop that maybe, but I guess there's just changes that happen from that point. No, you don't stop it because they still have Zack in the alternate timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they still have alternate timeline shit that doesn't really make sense.
Is that what that is? It's an alternate timeline? Is that why Zack is still alive or whatever?
Yeah, you
that
can
they
tell
show
it's
the
in an
end?
alternate timeline because like the dog that they keep on making mentions to, like the army one, they use a different dog. And like they have a rapper go by. So you know it's in an alternate timeline. My theory, I do have a slight video on it, is in I guess that's what they're shooting for, is for people to create fan theories to try to keep fan engagement going, like, oh, what's gonna happen next? You know,
Which is
that they
kinda
wouldn't
smart
have.
if it's done the right way.
Yeah, I
But
would.
whatever it is, it'll be disappointing.
Yeah, I would like it more if it was a new Final Fantasy game. But even still, I like my Final Fantasy games to tell complete stories. So
Well, hold on now, because would you actually like it more if it was a new Final Fantasy game? Because the most recent Final Fantasy games seem to have been a letdown. Or at least you'd have to try pretty hard to screw up.
the story of 15 should have been good. They just are so incompetent that they didn't make a good story. But that should, like, you
Yeah,
look
there
at
were
all
some
the
production
components there.
problems in that.
Yeah, there's a shit ton of production problems, but you look at like the villains, like motivations and everything. Some of the characters, I don't know, they had a good story somewhere in there, but
Yeah, a good
it's the
story,
way it's
poorly
told.
told.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
way it's told is awful, and so.
Fair.
I don't know. I don't have much faith for the next Final Fantasy game either, but that also just looks boring and the story seems crappy. But based on what I've seen, that hopefully I'm wrong. But I don't
Right.
know. I would rather a new Final Fantasy world, which is why I'd never a big fan of like they're remaking Final Fantasy VII to begin with.
Earlier, yeah. Although, pleasant surprise.
Yes, I still like the game.
Despite
I'm excited
the fact
for the
that we've been
sequel.
on negatives.
Yeah, we've been just
Still.
talking about the negatives, but we can move on to why it is that I enjoy it at least, unless someone else.
I still got one more negative. And this one I can understand for why they did it, but I still don't like it, is chapters format. Mm-hmm. I think it kind of really defeats the purpose of an RPG to lose the ability to go back.
It kind of changes how you feel the story is too. Like,
Yeah. And I get it, because places get destroyed in this game, so naturally, they don't want you to miss things, so they want to give you this option and such, story-wise. But to me, gameplay trumps story, where it's like, I don't know, I feel like they could have worked it around better without this whole, just go back to a whole other chapter, replay the mission.
I mean,
That doesn't feel like an RPG then.
yeah, I don't like chapters either, but at least I don't think it's too invasive in this one. But sometimes it's worse when games try to do this stuff, but.
You know, I didn't even think of that because I think the only way to do like a new game plus is to just go back and replay the chapters, which is annoying.
Yeah.
It would be nice just to be able to start it from the beginning.
No, you can do that too, and it just continues
you?
and flows. Yeah, yeah.
I
you
thought
can.
you had like once you finish a chapter, it brings you back to the screen. Don't you have to
And then you
select
just start the
chapter
first
to do it?
chapter, and then you can flow through
you
the
sure?
entire game. Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. It's been a.
But
few
you
months
do
since
have to
last time I
select
played it.
chapter 1 and then play through it all.
Oh.
But yeah,
Okay.
it does still flow like it does with any playthrough. But at any point, you can back out and go into the other chapters again. I agree the chapter format. I don't like that. Like that's another thing Square's been doing a lot of recently. Probably even more in the next game because it sounds like they're
Yep, they're going to do a
Telling
lot
the
of
life.
time skips ahead, so it'll be
yeah. So
chapters.
they'll probably be the same chapter select type thing with that game, especially since they're practically making a Devil May Cry game, so they could just call it missions at that point. But yeah, I don't know. I agree that it's the way it flows. The story gets disrupted when you're naturally putting those cut points in there.
Right.
Yep.
But yeah,
okay.
the reason, or overall, I did really like how the story flowed, especially if you do compare it to like Final Fantasy 15, that didn't feel like they did a good job telling it. This one's got great character animations. The characters overall, like they did a good job of capturing all of all the characters' personalities and visually too, just actually like animating them to make them look better.
Yeah, those are both. I made the same points that you just made, but broke them up a little bit. I just graphics in general, all the animation, even like the different areas. The slums kind of seem the same, but like city seemed unique. Hojo or not Hojo, the Don's area. I can't remember what it was called. The slums or whatever.
Yeah, it's a different sector.
The sectors, yeah. And the character design was really cool. Especially even though I didn't play the original, but I would assume if somebody did play the original, the animations on those characters rang true to like how you would want them to have been animated 30 years later, 20 years later, whatever it was.
Yeah, they did for me. Even the voices, the voice selection's good.
Yes, yeah, I mentioned that too. Voice acting seemed to ring true to the original. Yep.
Yeah, they seem like they chose in your head what you think those characters would sound like. They chose good voices to match what that is, which that's sometimes tricky to do because they never tell you what these characters sound like. So.
Right.
But yeah,
no, character design was top notch to me. I feel like a lot of love went into recreating them.
It definitely did seem that way, and it did show. I think that they have a lot of really good animations. I mean, Tifa and Aerith are both ridiculously attractive.
A lot of love.
Yeah, a lot of love. Maybe
they both have giant, big, round
personalities.
Big eyes.
Actually, I hear those big eyes were scaled back, and people complained about
people
that.
did complain about that with Tifa's breasts, that they were complaining that they were like smaller, and it's like because she's wearing a sports bra now. I don't know. They're big enough. I wouldn't. I don't think that's something that I would complain about personally, but whatever.
Right.
Floats
and
your
again,
boat.
we're comparing these things to giant pixelated codes like from Tomb Raider. What do you want?
I do think even more, like, sometimes with some of these characters, like the members of Avalanche, not only did they like all look good and they kind of fit the part, but some of the story parts that they added in actually gave you more character than what they had before, which was always nice. And it didn't seem like it's the bad for the most part of stuff that they added, at least with that. Like the time ghosts were bad, but I did like some of the more character that they added in with Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge.
No, character development I put on a top notch because they're even better than they were in the original. Like they developed them really well.
But you
for
think
a
they should be with
section
more
of the
time.
original game?
Yeah.
Exactly. 5-hour section of the original game, padding these characters like Jesse, Wedge, and Biggs didn't feel like padding at all. It felt like quality content to me, and I was quite happy to develop that further.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
What did you guys think of the motorcycle soldier? I'm blanking on his name.
You think I'd hate him like I would Chadley, but honestly,
he's such a joke. Yeah.
When I first ran into him, I was like excited because I was like, oh shit, another soldier. Maybe this might be.
He should be
something
tough.
Cloud can relate to. Should be tough and should also be like part of something bigger, a bigger part of the storyline where like he's a soldier, you're a soldier.
He's a complete
whatever.
joke though. Yeah.
And there's just nothing to it.
Yeah.
You have that, and he's like, "Oh, we'll ride again some other time."
He also comes back in the DLC when he's like playing the board game with Yuffie. He's just a complete joke character. Which I don't know. I don't hate him as much as a lot of the other additions that they added. I don't know if he's good, but I don't think he's bad either.
Yeah, I'm with you.
They did add more to Johnny as well. So
they did, yeah. I will say I don't like motorcycle combat though. You can chalk that as a negative. It wasn't strong enough to even make a negative. I just didn't care for it.
You spend
it's so wonky.
Long time doing it too, because like the first time you do it, it's probably for like a half an hour, and then you have to do it again for like another half an hour at the end.
Then you have to do it again because you fucked it up.
Yeah, assuming you don't die because it's fairly tough. But yeah, I thought they did a really good job with all of the characters. Again, the visuals. I think there's some textures that you could look at and they're like, oh, that's pretty bad. But as you're just playing through the game casually, it looks pretty. Like, even there's certain parts of the world, like when you did go upstairs with like Jessie and saw her planet, and you see like the Mako reactor with the green, and like, holy crap, this looks fucking awesome. As like a fan of the original game, like this is so pretty to me. Like how they managed to capture the feel of what I imagined it looked like. Because they didn't even have a scene that looked like that in the original one, but yeah, they knocked it out of the park there.
Yeah, there were some aspects like the character design, the world design, the voice acting that really, again, I didn't play the original first, but now that we've been playing through, by the way, check out our Final Fantasy VII original playthrough right now, Beer Friendly Gamers /YouTube or whatever the fuck it is. Anyway, it does seem like they did a really good job. They were trying to be, fans as they were making it and be like, oh, Barrett should look like this. He should sound like this. This part of the city should look like this. This is what the world should. It seemed like there's a lot of care.
They didn't match it perfectly because the upper plate is supposed to be completely blocking out the sun at all times. But I don't know. I still think it looks good.
I appreciate some sunlight,
yeah,
honestly. So I
and
wasn't
the
complaining.
outdoor areas add a bit more.
Although Barrett should have sounded like Mr. T, but
they did a good voice.
It was a good voice.
Yeah.
It just was a little jarring at first. Like, oh, I always heard him in my head as Mr. T.
Yeah. Another positive I've written down here, though it's not a huge positive for me, maybe it's more for you guys, is the weapon upgrades do add a little bit more to upgrading your characters.
Yeah, I had that in customization.
I have that one as well. Yep.
Yeah, I'd say the only reason why it's not a huge positive for me is because it is kind of a pain to upgrade all the weapons, even the one that you're not using.
And they could have been better still, like more creative or more interesting.
Yeah, maybe some different slashes or something on Cloud Sword, I don't know. They do give
but
you...
compared to the original,
yeah,
it's nice to have options.
The original is just, you get a better weapon.
Materia.
Yeah.
Yeah, better
and it's
weapon,
materia.
change your materia.
Yeah, so you just get an upgrade.
It does seem nice that, like, if you want to play a certain way, one sword is better for magic. For Cloud, one's better for melee with less materia slots. So they try to balance it a little bit, which I appreciated. I thought
Yeah,
that was
it's
nice.
definitely different, and I don't think it's worse in any way. It is kind of neat in the old games when you pick up a new sword and you're doing that much more damage. But you still get excited when you find a new weapon for this, especially since they had the extra ability, which was way too easy to unlock, because you only had to use it most of the time, like 10 times in combat. But you get that new ATB ability that's attached to each one of these weapons as well.
Yeah, yep.
Also true. Although, would you have preferred, customization-wise, a just regular old classic skill tree, or do you like the weapon system more?
I like things that that have a unique version that's still what's the word? It's still familiar. That's what it is. So it is kind of like a skill tree, but just for your weapons. So
Yeah, I'd like this far more than a
first.
skill tree. At least like Final Fantasy 15 skill tree was just boring and
It
lame
was,
in every
although-
way.
What I like about a skill tree is still that it's only one thing to level up, so you're not re-leveling up every weapon.
Oh,
As you
yeah.
said, 'cause that can get a little long.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's still a positive for me. I think it adds quite a bit more. And
100%. Compared to the original game, I like the options.
I'm happy that they do have the original game's materia system brought back in pretty similarly to what it was in the original game. I do think they probably needed a bit more blue
All
materia. Yeah, not all, which would be a blue one. Just like stuff that connects to the green materia to give an added effect. I think they needed more of those to really help show the linking materia and what it is that you can do. Maybe like steel NP materia, like some of the stuff that you get late game in the original Final Fantasy VII. It would have been nice to have more stuff like that, because that's really where the materia system can shine, is when you start getting creative with linking these abilities. But overall, I still think that it's a fun system, of giving people different abilities, and they still did a good job with that by adding it in here.
And the characters have their secondary stances too, which kind of add a little bit of something, I guess.
Yeah. I know I played Crisis Core, which again was like the PSP one, and they had the materia system kind of, but it was done awfully. It wasn't really like the original game, and this is a far better implementation of it to go similarly with. But yeah, I just like a few more linked materia. I'm sure there will be in the sequel. There'll be more than what they had, but at least it's kind of sucks that it wasn't here in the first game.
Yeah.
I kind of want to jump back a little bit to the negatives because I forgot one, and you guys might disagree with me here.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't feel like there was enough exposition on the villains. Like, the villains didn't seem to hold a lot of weight. Even the president, you barely saw him. He was like, I'm going to drop a plate. It's like, oh, that's a bad guy. But there wasn't a whole lot of character there. There was a little bit more with the Turks, Reno, and who was the other guy?
Rude.
Oh, Rude. Yeah, it's a little more than the
little bit
original
there.
with them.
Yeah, but otherwise, I didn't feel like there was a villain that I was looking forward to confronting. The Don was a little bit better, I guess, because he was just a weird.
He's a pretty
pervert.
monstrous guy, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I will give you, if you're going to pad the clock with anything, pad it actually developing characters, including the villains, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it seems like they gave the villains the same amount of screen time as they did in the original game, but, you know,
Right.
it's way padded out and way longer, so they probably should have more. Especially,
Right.
like, it's probably confusing for a lot of people when Rufus comes in, who's, like, the new president, because he's the president's kid. And then
Right.
he's just gone, but, like, in the original game, that makes sense, because they keep on bringing up that character still. You know, you're only, like, 3 hours in. So, in the original game,
Right.
it works, but in this one, where that ends the game, it's like, what the hell was he in there for?
Yeah.
That's kind of, I guess, just an issue with the base material and trying to put it into parts.
Right. Although they did have a lot of like Heinegger kind of like looking at screens as you guys blow up their reactors and make it look very like Shinra's just letting you do this and trying to
Yeah,
set
that's
you
kind
up.
of a dumb change,
Yeah.
I think.
I
'Cause
didn't like that.
the characters, I guess, were kind of nicer in the original one, where you were kind of like a terrorist. Like, it wasn't them setting you up. They didn't make the bomb bigger to do more damage. That was just something you did.
Right.
But
So, if you're familiar with the original, which you guys are a lot more familiar than I am, but even though it's a lot more dragged out and there's a lot of filler if you're comparing the two, I am actually looking forward to the sequel because I want to see how they handle the next parts of the story.
me too, especially. There's a lot up parts
very
that are
much so.
coming up.
There's a lot of potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost
So
too
it sets
much.
you up for
That like they
it
can't
sets-
cover it all. But
Right. So it'll be interesting to see how they do if they stretch the next ones out as much as they did the first one, but there is some anticipation there. I would like to see what they do.
Right. And when we wrap up our pros cons, I wouldn't mind touching on some of that too.
I only have
Okay.
one more pro. It's just pretty
Same.
much me talking about the DLC was also fun. Controlling Yuffie was actually a blast.
Yeah, she is good. Maybe they're gonna have to nerf her.
They're gonna
even.
have to nerf her because you would use her in every fight. So
Right.
yeah, they'll certainly have to do that, I think. But it was still fun to do. It was fun to use her character. I'd say it got a little worse at the second half when they're also making you go through repetitive fights.
Murder maze again.
Murder maze again, yeah. Also, while editing this video, I realized we forgot to talk about how awful Gimpsuit Gary is, the final boss of the Yuffie DLC. His power seems to be that he has unlimited darkness? I don't really know what the hell's going on. He's from another game, but it doesn't matter. This shit's awful. This is the absolute what it is you don't want to see in a Final Fantasy VII game. I really don't want to see this in any Final Fantasy game. The guy just straight up sucks. He sucks to look at. His powers suck. I hate this guy, so I had to mention it. But I also have two comments that aren't really positives or negatives. It's that I didn't mind the linear level design. I think a linear game still worked pretty well. I mean,
Same.
the original Final Fantasies were pretty linear for the most part, outside of the world maps. And I also said the music isn't great, but it's not bad either. I like the original Final Fantasy VII music a lot, and they have okay remakes here for the most part, but it's not
Doing a
anything that blew
jazzy
me
spin.
away.
I could see what they were going for. Yeah.
I think Kelly, more than anyone I know, pays attention to music in the video games. Which
There's
is
a lot of
not-
them
it's not
I
a bad
like.
thing, but you do. You're a sucker for that kind of thing.
Mhm.
In a good
when,
way.
yeah, when you play them like so long, eventually you're like the same song over and over needs to not just grate on you.
Yeah, it's definitely a different design, and you're trying to do it to create an ambiance or atmosphere more
Right.
than anything else. And Uematsu does like to repeat kind of the same song, but in a different style, usually in his
Yeah.
soundtracks. So I know Final Fantasy
Right.
X does that a lot, and so does, I guess, so did like all of them.
Yeah, I just wanted to further touch on the combat in the game. Essentially, it's
That's right.
brilliant
I
combat.
skipped by it. That's one of the most
I
important
had
things.
combat, but I felt like we talked about it a little bit. When we were
We
going
touched
through
on it
summons
kinda
and all
like-
that kind of stuff.
all over the place, but mostly I wanted to focus on the concept of how they still managed to incorporate that classic turn-based feel with being able to pause,
Yes.
make decisions between
This is a
each
good
character.
point, Steve. I actually just completely missed it. I said combat, this is what modern Final Fantasy games should be for the most part. Absolutely. I love the way that if you attack, the ATB bar goes up quicker, so you're not just sitting there defending or anything like that.
Oh yeah, and smart makes you really think about using your potions because you're using ATB to
yeah,
use them,
you
so
use
you're
an
not just
ATB
spamming
to
them.
cure, use a potion. So it's like that, and the ATB bar itself, when you match that up with the cool different abilities that you can use, it's It really is, like, if they're gonna go more action oriented. I mean, there's still like the flying creatures and things like that don't work. But if you really boil down to like why it is that I think that this game is still really fun and I really enjoyed playing it, the combat is just kind of what I think a Final Fantasy game should be if they're moving in that direction. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was the combat was very fun. I like the obviously we already talked about the integration of materia, but it felt like it was in the live action rather than a turn based. It felt like it was more important to have the right shit available, and have it equipped and like know what you're doing. So
Makes sense.
it was good. Yeah.
yeah, and then you get all of those cool abilities back that you didn't get into like Final Fantasy 15. But like you can steal, you can steal's not really good in this one. Sadly, it's better in like 10. But like something like that, you can steal. You have all the like protect, shell, haste, up and things like
What
that.
was that one? Was it quick dodge or something when you?
Oh, one of the
attack out a
materials.
Oh,
Yeah,
Deadly
like-
Dodge?
I've never used that
Deadly
one. But
dodge. I like that one a
Yeah.
lot.
Well, that's a good options for combat. Like, it completely changes the style of combat if you use Deadly Dodge. And me and Kyle, we were addicted to Deadly Dodge. We did that.
Absolutely.
That was most of our fighting style throughout the game.
Absolutely.
And then you slap that life steal materia on it and just get all your HP back every attack. Whoa.
Ooh, baby.
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
what's nice is that you can get creative then with the different abilities in the combat. Because when a lot of people think this is kind of a problem, like people, I don't know, like the combat in the old Final Fantasy games, like the ATB bar slowly raising up, you have a character attack. That's not really what makes the game good. It's you thinking about how it is that you're going to set up your character and build this stuff up. The same thing with Final Fantasy X with the turn-based system. So the fact that they were still able to incorporate those elements while also having a more action-focused combat is just a super cool implementation that is done almost perfectly to what it is I think they should be doing. Sadly, the next game's a Devil May Cry game that they're just saying is Final Fantasy. So
Right. So if you're a Devil May Cry fan, though, you're in luck. Well, if you're into very beige Devil May Cry, like,
yeah,
it looks like
with
a
a boring
Devil May-
storyline, yeah, without the fun characters. Yeah, then
Like
you're
if
in luck.
Dante got blasted to medieval times and wanted to talk politics.
Yeah, the entire time. And lose all of his fun that the character had. Yeah, then you're in luck. Absolutely.
Then you're in luck.
This is a game for you.
This is definitely a game that will be a game.
It'll be a game for sure.
Yep. If it wasn't for Final Fantasy VII Remake, I'd be done with this franchise after seeing that one. I'm very disappointed so far with what I've seen. Hopefully I'm wrong, and that I'll enjoy the game, but I doubt it. It's the exact opposite of what I was just talking about, praising Final Fantasy VII's combat, where you have all these cool abilities. Those will not be in the Devil May Cry focused action combat that
Gonna count
you're gonna get.
combos.
Yeah. I don't know. Then you got to use your demon hand from Devil May Cry 4. I don't know.
Hey, this is Final Fantasy.
It's a
an
phoenix
Ifrit
hand. Yeah.
Yeah, or something.
It's a penis hand.
A penis.
Well,
Maybe
we'll have to
Nomura was
wait and
more
see on
involved.
that one. See where Steve ranks it, but I don't
Right.
know. I'm overall, like, my thoughts on Final Fantasy VII Remake is I really enjoyed this. I think that everyone should give it a shot, even if you're a hardcore fan or if you're not. I think you're going to have fun with this game either way. There's probably some story elements that will make you shake your head, but especially if you are more okay with having some dumb story stuff thrown at you every now and then I think you're going to have a fun time with this game.
And again, if you've never played the original, I don't think, to me at least, nothing stood out as being super out of place. There were some wonky bits, but even the things that fans that are familiar with the game already complain about, it didn't jump out to me because I wasn't already familiar with it. Now going back, I can understand it, but even if you've never played a Final Fantasy game, I would recommend 10 first, and then if you're into modern games, I'd say 7 Remake.
Makes sense. Yeah, that'd be my recommendation order as well.
You got any closing statements, Steve?
For the actual game of itself, no. However, if we want to talk about things to come,
All right, yeah, make some
look
predictions
into
here.
that.
Talking about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, they did officially say that the trilogy, or it's going to be in 3 parts, the retelling of the Final Fantasy VII story. So,
which is really good to know, because I was like, back when it first came out, I was worried that how many chapters are there going to be? They could divide this into like 7 episodes.
yeah,
just
so
to be cheeky.
it's nice to have that knowledge. It was good of them to say that.
Right. Yeah, it makes me more invested. But yeah, that being said, I just hope there's no chapters in the next one to come, because I think they don't need to, because there's
Yeah,
nothing
it's
really
more
getting
open
destroyed
world.
that you leave behind. Yeah, open world, or even if it's like linear like Final Fantasy X, you can still backtrack straight back
Yeah.
without worrying.
Yeah, they
Right.
don't need to have the travel through the chapters. Maybe there's a few sections you wouldn't be able to get back to, but it wouldn't be that big of a deal. And they could do what every JRPG did when they had that problem in the first place, which is just, yeah, if there's some item that you missed that's super important, you can get it at a later point.
Right. The other thing I'm hoping for, I hope we dial back the dick ghosts. I mean, I know
they
I
should
know
be
it-
gone.
Exactly. I think they're gone because I think we killed them. But I don't want to see them.
But we
so
actually
I'm expecting
don't
a different
know.
story. But I just don't want to see them because they are like a physical personification of meta meddling, and I just can't stand seeing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to, because if they did, let's be like, well, why did they have it in the first game and not the rest of them, which would become a
I guess it's that the story
continuity issue,
changed.
So I think they're going to.
They're
Right,
still
that's
gonna
it, I
have
think-
alternate reality bullshit since Zack is in an alternate reality.
Exactly. I think we set
Right.
up an alternate reality, but I think we killed the dick ghosts. I hope.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. But maybe we didn't kill the dick ghost in the alternate reality. So
Yeah. So there's
Killing
still
the-
room.
No, I think killing the dick ghost is clearly a representation of the patriarchy and toppling the all the terrible things that men have done with their penises.
Kyle's right. Tifa's boobs are nice.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's
The
got
game would
wonderful
also
eyes.
the game would also go from a 9 to an 11 for me if Chadley dies.
In a brutal fashion. Like instead of the snake being killed by Sephiroth, it's just Chadley being
Chadley on a
impaled.
spike.
Yeah.
Like it'd be a 9 to 10 if they didn't include him, but 9 to 11 if we include that step.
Yeah.
Let's go the extra mile.
But yeah, there's a lot that they're gonna have to get through if they skip any of it, then fans are gonna get pissed like me. So I don't know how they're gonna handle, but I'm excited to see more after what it is that they showed us.
But they can make
more
time for
bucks.
Chadley's death.
Yeah.
Yeah, that being said, I'm making the time, and will they get through it? There's an obvious closing scene with Aerith that I'm like, that's where if they gotta make it to that bit, and I'll be happy. Like, that's where it should go.
That's where it should go.
They don't do... But they are changing the story, so who knows?
I think they said that they're gonna stick close enough to it, but we'll see. I hope that they do.
Right.
Because even then, it'd be nice to see some of these areas like the Gold Saucer in HD and just some of these areas actually fleshed out. Like, even if I don't like some stupid alternate reality bullshit in the story, I'll still get that experience, which will be really cool for me.
Yeah, makes sense. And yeah, I could do with I know you actually used Punisher mode when you played through the game. I'd like it if they kind of revamped Cloud's fighting a little bit. To have,
I think they're going to
don't know,
revamp
just-
almost everyone's fighting
Yeah.
to some degree,
'cause
especially you.
I'd prefer just heavy attacks with triangle over a Punisher mode with triangle. I don't know. It just seems like it could be more fluid. Because Punisher mode, it's like you switched from automatic, like really odd turtle stance that feels very awkward and clunky to me. I can't use it.
It is.
Like, you're
I don't
supposed to
use it
use
It is
as
kind of
on
clunky,
Breaking.
but that's kind of the point
Yeah.
too, I guess, is that it does more damage. You can counter. But yeah,
Right,
once you
right.
roll, you're out of it again, and you have to switch back.
Exactly. The rollout, that was where I really screwed myself out a lot because I got so used to deadly dodge, I kept rolling out of Punisher mode whenever I tried to use it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and hopefully, yeah, we get some more with character customization, weapon systems. Like, I'll be looking forward to all that, and yeah, that pretty much covers it for me.
Yeah, that's the end of mine too. I think we're good.
All right, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoy Final Fantasy VII Remake too. If not, maybe the parts that we also dislike, you dislike even more. But if there's some other components, let us know what it is that you think. As always, thanks for watching. Catch you next time.
Later.
Tater.